for the opportunity you gave us to participate in this kind of webinars. We really appreciate that, and we think it's very useful for our users, our customers, but for everybody who is interested in the JDE Edwards environment. Well, my name is Jeroen van der Zee. I'm working for Forza Consulting. We work closely together with Novotech, one of our business partners. And why do we work closely together, and why are we very fond of working together with the RobX solution? Our experience is we miss deeper functionality in JDE Edwards regarding to planning and scheduling. I think most of you are familiar with the JDE Edwards, and it's not graphical, it's not easy to maintain, and sometimes it's just difficult to work with it. And I was very pleased when I saw it for the first time. I saw graphical planning and scheduling. I saw the possibility of advanced logic. It is a proven solution. There is an interface between JDE Edwards and RobX. It's a flexible configuration. There are multiple use cases. It's not complex. I had a demo, to be honest with you, last week. And even I'm able to work with the planning environment. So it shouldn't be not that complex. And it fits JDE Edwards and its users. Well, I'm sure about that. And I hope at the end of this presentation, Henny will give to you, you agree with me. I think this is from my side information I can tell you. Oh yeah, something about the logistics. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. So Henny can continue, and he can see with his third eye there is a question as well. And otherwise he will, we tell him via our chat. And he's trying to give answer on the questions. But if it's possible not to answer all the questions, we are very pleased and very happy to give you additional information later on. So don't hesitate. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. I think Novotech, Henny, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, Henny van der Beek from Novotech, and likewise to Jeroen and Hearing. We're glad to be announced in the JDE Edwards community to present RobX as a proven scheduling solution. Novotech is a company already existing more than 30 years in, nearly 35 years in the industrial automation scene, located in northwest of Europe, with about 150 colleagues, and our headquarters in Sweden, Malmö. We built up quite a track record with something like 2,500 plus customers. Not all those customers are RobX users. The majority of our turnover is created by the General Electric digital production suite. General Electric and Novotech decided or concluded that it lacked some functionality in scheduling, resulting in development of RobX, which is a Novotech owned application, but also sold by General Electric throughout the world as a prophecy scheduler. RobX itself is already existing more than 20 years in the Nordics, and like Jeroen said, it's a proven solution for proven and scalable solution for scheduling applications. Again, the logistics and takeaway. Do not hesitate to ask questions, but please do it in the chat. And if you have any deeper questions or want more information, Jeroen van der Zee is the consultant or the guy to talk to. Let me start with the RobX demonstration and the RobX application. What you see in front of you is a Gantt chart as graphical interface or graphical solution for visualization of the all production orders and operations in your factory or in your ERP system. Whereas every operation has its own order name, operation names, resource that can be selected, start and end date, dates information based upon, for example, MRP, like the minimum start date and the required delivery date or the required need date on the next level. And something like status and quantity can be shown in your information pane. On top of the information pane, we have a few shortcuts for navigating and using the Gantt chart itself. One of the main important ones is our color schemes, and I will come to that in the next parts of the demonstration. And on top of that, we have the menus for maintaining and keeping track of information in Robex itself. This demonstration is a standalone demonstration, so I'm not linked to a JDE Edwards environment, but it's very easy to import information into Robex and use that information from the JDE Edwards application, JDE Edwards ERP system, and maintain your schedule in Robex and send that information back to JDE Edwards to have the detailed scheduling information, detailed scheduling results sent to the JDE Edwards database for further analysis, or even in using the MRP running on material requirements. In the left of the Gantt chart, we have our resources. In this case, it's nearly all physical machines or work spots, but this can be special tooling for which you want to have an availability calendar and you want to maintain it in your schedule. It can be persons. If you want to have setup personnel to be available during the setup of an operation and don't want to interfere with their availability or the amount of operations that are need to be set up at the same time. And every operation, every resource can have a specific availability calendar where the white spots on this Gantt chart are available or open hours, and the gray periods are closed periods. These calendars can be edited and changed from the Gantt chart itself by adding a new period telling me that, for example, tomorrow we have a closed day on this, this resource where we can select all day or a part of the date in order to, for example, schedule preventive maintenance or holiday or illness periods. As you see, the result is that the listed operation has taken longer to finish because we start at today's afternoon, but during the weekend and the fact that we don't have someone available tomorrow, we end at the 2nd of June. It also turns red, indicating with my milestone flag that I'm out of, that I'm overdue on this, this operation. It should finish at the 29th at 7 o'clock, which isn't, because we finish at the 2nd of June at 10 o'clock, indicating that this operation is finishing too late for the schedule that should be there. Also, the red line in this graph shows that the next operation in this order, and if I select that and go to the edit order, we see that this operation has, this order has 2 subsequent operations. The next operation, inspection, is still scheduled on the 29th, which is invalid, of course, because the assembly is only ready on the 2nd of June, with the red line indicating a broken constraint where the sequence of the operations is not maintained. That also can be shown by using one of the flags or the color schemes we have. Showing broken constraints show you in red the operations that are not following the sequence they should have. If, for example, we select an operation or an order, and we like to know where the other operations of this order are located, we do have another button or functionality to highlight selected operations or selected orders in the Gantt chart. This will give the user the ability to more details see what is happening in this Gantt chart and only focus on one or more orders. If, for example, I go to the order list and have, by doing a search, selected a few orders, we can also find them in the Gantt chart by filtering them and only see these applicable orders and not the rest that are located on the Gantt chart. As I said, the order list you can search in here. We can search, for example, for the first resource an operation is located on. For example, anything that needs to be on the saw. That can also be, we can, for example, search on order numbers where you have a wildcard search. There's no need to have the full search in full search string in typed in, but you can do that by part of the search string and combine various searches with this with these fields. There is a possibility to save these searches as a predefined value, for example, assembly, where you can add that you save the values of what you have in your search string also. And we can retrieve these predefined searches to see what's happened in your overview of your orders. If we go back to a full order string, we can see that there are different status of the orders in it. Planned means there are on the Gantt chart new orders. They're not on the Gantt chart, but in the system. So freshly received from the ERP system. We can filter that on buttons in the top by selecting only this or selecting all orders, but not new. For example, a planner that starts every morning with a fresh set of MRP orders can use this functionality to schedule these orders, where we can choose from the scheduling strategy how to schedule these orders. For example, basing on the material date, that's the material date, start date of the order. In this case, it will be something like the 27th of May. Robex is looking in the Gantt chart from that day on if there is available room or not on the resources. Starting from now, that means literally 1600 hours, 17 minutes, or starting from a custom date where we can define a date in the future so we can have some sort of frozen period in our schedule to not interfere the schedule with new orders for the next few days. That are the forward scheduling methods. Backwards is also possible from a custom date or from the due date, delivery date on the order. Typically, you see that customers having orders with longer lead time than their normal internal workload will be required. Schedule these orders in a backward scheduling method and all other orders schedule in the forward method. But if the material date is correctly filled in, we can use a forward method scheduling and tell Robex to use material dates and delivery dates. In this case, the forward scheduling material dates will be used. And if, for example, I have an order that is due starting not before the 27th of June, for example, Robex will only start looking in the capacity or in the schedule at the 27th of June and not any further or not any earlier.
Henny, may I ask a question? Because I see in the chat box, I see a question from Wouter. You showed us, well, I think There were more questions. Maybe you can go back to the Gantt chart and you can show it's a question about workdays, shifts, and working hours in JD Edwards. I saw yesterday it was possible to well, to collect it to a week or a longer period and shorter period. Is it possible to
You
determine
mean
working
zoom in
days?
and zoom out?
That's one of the questions, but can you also work with determine weekdays, shifts, and working hours in JD Edwards?
So for that case, I have to rely on you that I'm correctly with the weekdays. So what I did in this case is that we have a general calendar which is linked to a resource. We have a week calendar which can be filled with one or more periods, defining the different periods that are open or that are used in JD Edwards. And we define a holiday calendar where we define the general non-working days besides the standard week we have. All this can be imported from JD Edwards, so we can use the JD Edwards availability calendars on every resource that is in JD Edwards.
Okay.
If, for example, I need more open hours in general, so not only for a specific date, but for every machine in this demo, I could state, for example, that we have some over hours on some additional hours, let's say 3 hours starting from this Monday with no end date every Wednesday.
Okay.
And at this moment we can see that next Wednesdays we could see that next Wednesdays we had a longer period. If for a single resource, we can always change the specific periods and add periods to that. So calendars can be very flexible to maintain the availability of your resources. And like I said, virtually everything can be imported from an external system into Robux to work with the information.
And shifts as well?
Shifts as well. If, for example, but I must admit I have done something I shouldn't have done in this demo, but add shift periods. We could add 2 periods on the same day, indicating a morning and an afternoon shift.
Okay.
In the end, it will just help you in providing more open hours than currently available. If, let me go back to the shifts again. If I go for the holiday calendar, if on the holiday calendar I created a color to that, if I add sorry for my Dutch, I truly don't know directly the English word. Yeah, but you can give the closing periods, if you add the color to it, a remark which can be shown on the Gantt chart. Why is this color there? Why do we have a closed period at this moment? I hope that helped in answering the questions.
Yeah. I have another question, but I like to postpone it to a later moment. But I won't forget you, Nienke.
Okay. So we had, with this operation, we had a breakdown, or we had a scheduled delay. We can reschedule all these operations by selecting them on the Gantt chart, and there are many operations, many possible solutions to do that more automatically, but in this case I do it manually. I ask Robux to reschedule these operations, and because we have a setup where first the operations go to a central resource where we can, in a later stadium, for example, someone applicable or in charge of the department, tell where the operation should go to in reality. So a layered scheduling is very well possible, where someone is responsible for the overall scheduling and only a department manager is scheduling his department himself. Next to that, we do have, what we lack here is that I have to take this one, no, not the painting, sorry. I have to take this assembly. In here we have raw materials or materials. We use a blue frame, we use a front wheel and a rear wheel, and some other materials are on the assembly location to assemble the complete bike. These operations might have not enough stock at the moment in time. Where we have one of these color schemes is, for example, the material shortage, where we can show with various colors the status of the material in the operation. Green indicating that we have enough stock at the time the operation is starting. Blue indicating that we do not have, that we do have, might have stock, but it's not linked to each other. Yeah, we can see that in here there's enough stock, but not pegged in relation. So there's no relation between this operation and any other operations. And red indicating that we have a lack of inventory at this moment. We can show on the bottom graph, for example, the inventory on any operation or any part of inventory of the items in the operation, and see the inventory level. This will also change by moving the operation on the Gantt chart, and you can see on the bottom that the inventory level is also changing in conjunction. If I go to this operation, we have set up in this demonstration that we can use the pegging links. Pegging is a sort of sub-order creation between material production and consuming operations. It indicates that we do not have enough orders to get all pegging links on all demands satisfied, but we do have a lot of demands satisfied yet. As you can see, there are a lot of dashed links in it, blue links that are correctly in line, so there's no broken constraint in it, and the red links where we have a broken constraint in this, this operation. So our production operation is finished later than the consuming operation is there. If, for example, I would take these orders as a bottleneck, we can't start any earlier than we do. There's an option to bottleneck sort all operations that are linked to this one in either both ways. So we can do backwards and forward. Forward scheduling means that not forward scheduling, but forward bottleneck means that every operation following the current operation is rescheduled, and backwards is vice versa. Every operation before this operation will be rescheduled. And then we can use the scheduling criteria also. We can, for example, tell them that we can use different different resources within a operation group, resource group. When we reschedule that, we see that every inspection operation, for example, comes on the Tuesday. We see that we have enough assembly capacity in Tuesday, and there's no broken constraint left anymore in the schedule. So that's a way to keep up your schedule with different orders linked to each other by raw materials without having a sub-order link or an operation link within the order. When we, when we are there at the time of execution, we can promote this order to released, where we state that it's ready for production. And also, can this be shown in a color scheme like operation status, where we can see with blue that these operations are ready to start in the production. Robex comes with a, let me update this, comes with a shop floor client where operators can see what their task list is for their current machine. In this case, I have listed all machines. And on that machine can start the operation. The user that the operator is logged on is listed in here. The resource is already picked. And I can start telling the scheduler or telling the Robex that I start this operation. And if I go back to Robex, you'll see that the operation turns green, indicating that it is started. And if we go to the operation, we see at progress tablet when the operation actually started and when the last update was. If I would go back to this operation again, we see that it started. I can tell Robex that I have already done let's say a quarter of an hour work on this. And add some notes to that, adding the information to Robex. Again, if we go back to the operation, we can see that there's time passed on it. So we've done 15 minutes of the time already on the production. We haven't finished any quantities. And in the time registration listing, we can see what's happened on this operation. It can also be used to pause the operation, for example, to tell that there's no personnel, we have a lack of materials, and add something like that, and give it a check-in. If we do a refresh, we see that information coming in as part of a sort of OEE, simple OEE registration on this particular, or time registration on this particular operation. So it's not linked to the machine, but the operator can tell what's happening into the scheduling system. And this information can be feedback to JDE for time and material analysis. One thing that I would like to show you is the ability to, how do you call that, dynamically work with setup times. You see the setup time in here is gray, the field's gray. I cannot edit it, unlike the capacity where I can change that from 5 to 6 if I want to. The capacity is of the setup is driven by the product that's been built in this case, and the previous operation. In this case, we don't have a previous operation in the past, so the default setup is 3 hours to clean up the paint shop, and the setup on the next operation is 0 minutes, because we have the same color being processed. If we take on this operation, and I can show only the operations in for this only resource. We see we have 1 hour of setup. If I was change the operation in here, where we have a blue and again a blue operation, and put that on the Tuesday, we see we still have a change of setup of 2 hours instead of the 1 hour here. This can be used to reschedule your operations and optimize it in minimum workloads, where in this case the operations are listed in next together and providing you in the least workloads that there is. Problem, of course, is that we messed up our schedule, and that can be solved by using the bottleneck sort. We can add that, I didn't do that, but we could add that to, for example, this optimize command that can be configured by the user by a list of internal commands which are configurable by the GUI to help a scheduler or to help a planner perform his work more efficient by using these commands instead of doing everything on manual on the screen. One thing also we can provide with is some information on the, and I have to, sorry, I have to extend my view a little, where I would think oh yeah, sorry. For the record, this is for every user can define his own view. So that is an option that can be done by the user or by an administrator, and we can modify the view in terms of what sequence these operations should be shown. In this case, we have the assembly as a groups machine. We can also add documents to that, adding to the operator some instructions on how he should process this this operation. In this case, it's a JPEG, but any document that can be opened in the browser of the operator's console can be opened and can be controlled in here to show or indicate the operator what to do. In this screen, we see the blue start possible operations. I've set up the work in this case that we can also see operations that are not capable of starting. We can see some information, but we're not able to start this operation. So we have the option to provide the operator not only with operations that he can start, but also to provide him with additional work for the future, where he can anticipate it on, for example, by filling up his raw material stock or something else in preparation. Okay. Like I said, everything is configurable. Most of it is configurable by the GUI of Robix. We have in here the order list, which I've shown you already. We can work with projects in orders, maintain calendars, resources, operations, add routes if we want to, for example, have production orders or materials in Robix created that shouldn't be in the JDE Edwards environment, and add our views where we can show how the Gantt chart is shown. These views can help, especially with a number of resources in showing you a specific part of the schedule. For example, in this case, the assembly department or the mechanical shop, where the icon in front indicates it's for every user in the system, but we can create also a view that's only for myself as a current user. And there you can see that we can diminish the weekends or periods in time, preventing you, like on the standard, to show Saturday and Sunday in general, but showing you a more comprehensive and more compact schedule. Like I showed you during the question of calendars, we can extend the view to years, or zoom in the view into a quarter of hours, or even if possible, if needed, into minutes per period. And if we are lost on where we are, we have a Go to Now button where we can see our current operations. One thing that will help a planner to equalize or to level his workload is, for example, our workload graph, where we can see for every listed operation how much work there is. And also this is dynamically, if we move it, the workload graph will move. And we can have also a manpower graph where we can see that in this case, 2 operations are of 2 resources are listed, and we have from the 2 ones we need in this period of time 1 man for our schedule. These graphs are indicative. They're not we're not capable of limiting Robots with the graph, at least to say we only limited 50% workload, or we want to limit at only 2 men of workload. For that, we have different ways of working, but that's more in-depth configuration and layout of the operations and routes in the system.
Henny, I have a question. Maybe it's a good time to answer it. I have a question if it's possible to put this kind of screens on mobile devices, just like a phone or iPad, those kind of things.
Well, these kind of screens not. We do have a dashboard where we can see, for example, the Gantt chart also, and this is very well possible to do it on mobile devices. It's a web-based screen. We can also see orders where we can see that there are 2 orders late and on what date they are. So this dashboard can be used for management review or management information.
Well, I think that's important because you can show it to the managers, logistic managers, and those kind of people who can see in one view what's the status of the capacity and the used capacity.
True. The Robots comes with 3 types of clients. One is the administrator client, where we have 6 or 7 different user right levels that can be used to limit the user's access and abilities. We have what I just showed you, the shop floor client, where users can log in and return the report progress into Robots. And we have a viewer client, which is actually perfectly well the same client like we've shown here, but only capable of changing or showing the information and not changing information. And the dashboard client, like I said, is capable of showing everything like on operations on the Gantt chart. And we can add, have to add new Gantt charts to that, so it's configurable, where we can filter, for example, on a list of resources that I say I only want to see the assembly department for the next 3 days. And where you can see that if we link to an order and we double click on that, we have also the detailed order information on this operation.
I have some more questions. I see from Nienke has a couple of questions, but maybe in this context, you can see the questions as well right now, Henny?
I have to.
Maybe the last question from Wouter, well, is in line with what you're showing right now.
No, you don't need to determine it manually. I have to. Sorry, I have to open. What we do is we configure in a configuration directory, either in this case a Excel file that holds for the product name in a matrix form the setup types that are used. So if I have a blue frame and the next frame will be a red frame, I have 1 hour to clean. I need 1 hour to clean. If I go from a red frame to a blue frame, I have 2 hours to clean. This can be maintained in an Excel file, which is read during the power up or the startup of the Robox client. If the Excel file is larger, if you want to have data in a database, a SQL database, we can also use a call to a SQL database where we actually only ask the condition, the base, and the value that should be returned. And these values are used in here as the setup time. In this case, the setup time, we can virtually, we can create a new a dynamic previous queue time, a dynamic setup time, dynamic capacity or workload, dynamic switchover, and dynamic post queue times. They're possible to do that. On a mobile device, yes. Maintenance work orders, sure, we can use maintenance work orders. For Robox, a order is an order with an operation. It's only the way how you use them. Not in this configuration, but it's also possible to add order types where we can, in the order header, select different order types as a main criteria, and then, for example, keep track of maintenance orders instead of production orders. Master data in Robox is minimum. In nearly every data can be interfaced. It depends on what data, of course, is in JDE Edwards available for your needs in Robox. The goal of Robox is to enhance the data from an ERP system by adding extra information to that. What I did, for example, in the, I have to try find this one. In the painting operation, I said that I don't like any idle time, so it should not start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and end the next morning at 10. This is something that we could add to during importation of the data, or that you could maintain in Robox. So to determine the work days, can you determine weekday shows? Yeah, we can work with shifts and hours and etc. The only thing is that it won't show you on the chart. Okay, I think I have answered any questions. The JDE Edwards interface is an interface that we build up on the XML files. What we do there is that we have, I haven't told you that, there's also the same client, but capable of running in a headless mode on the server that we use on the background. For example, to create a XML plugin where we can do any import or scripting in front of import. It can be mastering the data, setting the data correctly, and check for every whatever seconds, minutes, or any time we want to check if a new file is there and import information. This is done 9 times out of 10 in a background configuration where JDE Edwards information, in your cases, or ERP information in general, is common to RobEx and automatically processed. And that information can be anything. It can be order information, it can be new raw materials, it can be inventory levels, or progress that coming from a MES system that you already have in place. RobEx is very flexible in using imports and in creating these kind of interfaces. That is about, in brief, what RobEx could do for a scheduling, operational scheduling challenge. In depth, we have more options to solve things like mastering tank management, mastering piping flows or work process flows to prevent operations, for example, on the assembly line 1 not going to assembly line on a next line on the other, in another location or in another part of the factory. But that's, I think, something for a more in-depth query and information.
Henny, I can see there's another question from Nienke.
Yeah, I just saw that. I've got the Zoom chat in front of me now. I found out how to work on it. Yeah, hello, Nienke. The interface is built by Forza. It is and partly by the way, it is sort of as is interface. Of course, every ERP system is configured to the needs of the customer. But the basics are there. That means that we have the process orders, the function of operations, material, to get that into RobEx, and vice versa. We have the operation to get progress back into JDE Edwards, or to get the planning information back into JDE Edwards. It is adaptable both ways, and that's on the RobEx way and on the JDE Edwards side to the needs of the customer. Does that answer your question, Nienke?
Yes, I was searching for the mute button. But of course, all kind of additional questions pop up, but I might go too much into detail. So for now, that's okay. Thank you.
For me, you don't mind, but...
Okay. Yeah, I know the devil is always in the detail in integrating systems. That's true. What is the background of my question, but I think that goes too far. But it might be interesting that we currently have a system that we capture, let's say, machine data live, and that is fed into our current scheduling system. Mm-hmm. I think it's old technology, but we have something in place. Is that possible as well, that you can capture live data from a machine? And in what way can it be done so that it feeds into RobEx and then RobEx updates JDE Edwards?
That can be done, depending on what kind of live data it is and how. Of course, RobEx needs to know the unique ID of the order and operation that you want to feed. Yeah. But yes, we do that quite often. Like I said, Novatec sells also the GE MES suite, and that's similar, like you say, it's capturing machine data, feed that back to Robex and pass that over to the ERP system.
Yeah.
In your cases, in JDE Edwards. In that case, in the cases we do that, we don't have the shop floor client like I showed you. But we have a more advanced MES client where we can keep track of lot tracking and tracing, have the capability of quality management tools in the client itself.
Okay.
But if you have limited needs for tracking information, progress information, the shop floor client is very well capable of working your way out in that.
Okay, thanks for the additional info.
Well, thanks. Any other question? And if not, I'll pass the word to Hering for the last 5 minutes. And then we finished in time, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there are other questions at the moment. Henny, thank you very much for this presentation, and also showing the complexity of scheduling and the relation to the ERP system. There are two different types of functionalities, and you showed us what the complexity is of the scheduling, and all the changes there are made in capacity and necessity, etc., etc. So thanks very much. If you could put up the last slide back again. Then please, as mentioned earlier, Jeroen also said if you have further detailed questions, and probably Nienke will find it her way. In that case, you can contact Jeroen. We'll make sure that this presentation, which is recorded, will be presented on the Oburg site as soon as possible. And for next week, we have an upcoming webinar about data masking. So that's more on the secure side, and how you are looking at data, which is becoming a more important topic these times. And stay tuned for other upcoming webinars as well. So please visit the oraclecommunity.eu, and we'll keep you posted.
Simple question: are you sure about the date? Because June 7 is a Sunday.
Yeah, very well noted. I should have known, because my father is having his birthday on the
my husband
Thursday.
is, that's why I know.
Very sharp, very sharp. Thank you, Nienke. It should be June the 4th, so coming Thursday, same time, same day. We'll make sure that the website is up to date. Okay,
thanks for the
well, thank you all. Thank you all for your attendance. Henny, again, thanks, Jeroen, also, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Your community, thanks for the opportunity to show Robex.
Welcome.